Hey, and welcome back to the starter set after a week off. I'm one of your hosts, Mark. Got with me my co-hosts today, DBN, Ian, and Gibbles and Bits. How you guys doing? Welcome back to the studio Tuesday afternoon.
We back.
It's great. Great to be in the studio. New game, same old three hosts.
That's right. That's right. Just three guys shuffling.
Just
Three guys shuckling.
Shuckling.
Just three guys shuckling, baby.
And if you're an audio listener, you don't know that DBN has on the most glorious of shuckle hoodies. And if you don't know what shuckle is, don't worry. It should be safe to Google it.
I think that's a safe Google. Yeah,
It's a safe Google. Maybe just put the word Pokemon in front of it just to be like 100%
just to be
clear.
extra. If you're at work, put Pokemon in front of it just for that 1% chance. You know.
You might get someone throwing a
words.
shell. You might get some oysters or something like that if you don't put Pokemon in front of it, like shucking oysters.
Yes, but Shuckle is one of my all-time favorite Pokemon. I say one of like I truly can't pick one, but I have a list. Like I have a list of my favorite Pokemon in every single type. Also, Shuckle's in the top 5 for me in no particular order. So like I have this. I saw this hoodie on Etsy, and I was like, I must have it. It will be mine.
Must have Shuckle.
I must
hoodie.
have it. So, anyways, yeah.
Well, we're gonna kick off the episode today with a question. I'm gonna pose it to Gibby first, I think. But the question is this: I think you hear a lot in like card game conversation, like what's more important, mechanics or design? What's more important, like thematics or balance? And what I find difficult about those questions is they're all important. Like you choose two things that if you gave up one, you destroy the game. And so it's really hard to answer. I think this question is a what's more important question, but I think this is one that you could theoretically give up one or the other. And so what is more important to you when it comes to playing a card game? Is it art or is it theme? And let me just express that a little bit more clearly because it wasn't super easy to understand when I first posted it for the team. So art, I mean, just that, like just the artwork, really stellar artwork. I think when we think of really good artwork, Gwent had really good artwork, Runeterra has really good artwork, that sort of thing. Theme is something, aspects of the game that engross you in the game, that suck you in, that envelop you, right? Inscription is a great example of a game with a tremendous amount of theme. I think that Marvel Snap also has a tremendous amount of theme. So with that being said, theme or artwork, what's more important to you in a card game, Gibby?
Definitely theme. I think artwork for me, I think a little bit more internally flexible about what kind of interpretation art styles like people like game developers will put on cards, and liking the different various kinds of art that can be on cards. Like there's less polarized like successes and failures in my mind of what the good art looks like. So I think art is a little less impactful for me from a negative perspective. There's less I dislike about certain kind of art styles, but theme for me overwhelmingly has been something that I feel like I tend to touch on when we go over these new games or just when we're evaluating a game and starter set. Theme tends to be a lot more of a sticking point for me and drawing me in, and not that a negative theme or a theme that doesn't necessarily bring me in will make me not want to play a game, but a theme that does bring me in and does like really catch my attention, or if it's an IP I'm familiar with that I really like, that will take me to the next level of wanting to play that game like deeper. So theme, it's definitely theme for me.
DBM, what about you?
Yeah, so I think that literally a month ago, I would have said theme all day. But boy, did Warpforge's artwork drive me up a wall, right? And I've been thinking about it ever since you kind of posed the question, like, well, okay. And I started theme. I was like, oh, but like a good theme trumps good artwork, right? But I think about a few things. Like I think about Warpforge and the fact that, like, listen, not that I was that interested in Warhammer, but you can't say that there isn't deep lore and there isn't, factions that are cohesive. And we talked about like, well, the artwork is cohesive. There are cool looking cards, but the way that it was visually displayed on the screen in terms of like, you know, the way the cards were framed, the way the artwork was scaled, the backdrops on the board, like all of that just I just couldn't stand, right?
Mm.
And that blends into design as well as art, but I think that we can, for the sake of this argument, combine the two, because I was thinking about this, right? Like Runeterra, I think great example of like really, really, really top of the line artwork and inconsistent theme. I know that drove you nuts, Mark, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I never used one of the KDA card backs that I unlocked for a reason, and you know, if I'm gonna play Infernal Kennen, I don't want to play normal Malphite. I want a Volcano Malphite, please. You know?
Right. Right.
Mhm.
And that's legit, right? And that was a legit complaint that you had. I think for me that wasn't as big of a problem. And thinking forward, I look at the new Star Wars Unlimited, and I've been seeing people opening packs and checking that game out, and I look at it and I'm like, there are few IPs and themes I love more than Star Wars.
Hmm.
I am, you know this, guys, I'm a huge Star Wars guy. But I look at those cards and the art style that they chose and the format of the cards, and I worry that I'm gonna be turned off by
Hmm.
the appearance of the cards. It's a very retro artwork, but also like the frames feel really outdated and like throwback to like 80s card games, 90s card games. And I'm like, I just don't know if I like that aesthetic. And so I've been looking at Star Wars Unlimited, and like the complete theme and game set aside, I look at the cards and I'm like, I don't know.
Mm,
I just
okay.
don't know, because man, I didn't think I was that into Disney characters. But Lorcana's artwork has crushed, and it has made me actively more excited about some of the Disney movies that I previously probably didn't have a strong opinion on. So I'm going art over theme.
Okay, art over theme. You know, I was thinking through this a little bit because I think there's two ways that you can think about this question, right? There's the if both are good, which one would I prefer to be better? Versus if both are bad, which one can I endure more? Right? And
Yeah.
so, like, when it comes to which one I prefer, I think to be better, like if they're both good, and I think the game we're talking about today, Fights in Tight Space, is a good example of this, right?
Yes.
The
Mhm.
theme is excellent. It's freaking great. I
Yep.
love the theme. I'm so engrossed in the
Spoilers
game.
for the rest of the episode,
Yeah,
Mark.
I know.
Yeah.
But then
Keep it
like,
out.
the artwork isn't anything to write home about. I think you know for certain extent, Wild Frost is kind of similar to that, right? The artwork isn't. Oh, it's fun. It's whimsical. It's not like as intricate and complex and like mind
Well,
blowing.
I mean,
as some other games, right?
I think that that's bleeding into art style, and if an art style, I feel like I'm going to defend Wild Frost in that I actually think the artwork is fantastic, because I think it was clearly intentional to do this Adventure Time style artwork. Was like,
That's 100%. You're right. We have more and more games now that like the artwork. A big portion of it is like
it doesn't
like
have to be hyper realistic or anime.
No.
yeah, Breath of the Wild or Genshin Impact is similar to that, right? It's like the artwork is stylized, which makes it really attractive and pulls you
Mhm.
in. On the flip side, I think the thing I think I can endure bad theme longer than I can endure really bad artwork. I think if the artwork is really bad, I
Yeah.
just struggle to get into it because it's
Same.
just ugly and unappealing and I can't bring
Mm.
myself to play the game. Whereas if the theme is off, if the you know, it's like, yeah, the theme kind of sucks for this game. It doesn't really come through super well, but the mechanics can kind of override that. It messes with my brain in the right way, and I can look past it. Or even if you have really good mechanics, but your game is just awful and hideous and disjointed and confusing to me, I really struggle with that. Which I think is a really good. I think it's a good question in conjunction with the game that we're starting off with today, because we are talking about a theme heavy, stylized, single player deck building roguelike in this new game called Fights in Tight Spaces, which you can pick up for about, I think, $25 on Steam. I think it's maybe a little less on Nintendo Switch, or is that what you paid for it on Switch, DBN? I know you're playing on
No, I
Switch.
paid full price for it. And by the
Full
way,
price.
let it not be unnoticed, listeners. Mark, true professional. That segue was peak.
Oh,
Well done,
look at
Seth.
that.
It was
Yeah.
fantastic.
That was a flawless transition that I've now lost all of our momentum highlighting, but
Yeah.
yes, flawless.
Way to go.
Thanks. I think I appreciate you recognizing it, though.
I just feel like I need to call that out.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Let me give a quick overview of this game, Fights in Tight Spaces, for all of our listeners so that you can kind of get an idea about we literally did not do that with the last game. And we waited until like episode 3 to do it.
Yeah,
Let
I
me
think
let me
so.
do it with this one. So
Whoops.
Fights in Tight Spaces runs in the same genre as games like Slay the Spire or Wild Frost, if you played that with us over the course of last year, even like Monster Train, that sort of thing. But it's very unique in the fact the theme of this game is you are a secret agent who is making your way through a handful of different gangs, and you're sort of like you're almost like a John Wick type character without a gun, right? Where you are just, the whole thing is it's going to drop your character on a grid that has different things in it. So you might be dropped in a tattoo parlor and there's a window, a door, and a tattoo chair. You might be dropped on a bus and there's bus seats. You might be dropped, on a rooftop and there's edges all around. And then it's going to drop in enemies around you that are going to take their turns to move and attack. And it's going to tell you what those enemies are going to do each round. They're going to move around this grid and they're all going to have their own abilities. Some of them are going to shoot guns. They're going to go the whole way across the map. Some of them are going to punch everything in front of them. Some are only going to punch one space in front of them. And then they all have a health pool. You have all of this information at your fingertips. You're going to draw a hand of cards. You have 3 energy, momentum, mana, whatever, that you can spend on these cards, just like you would in realistically just about any roguelike card deck builder game. And you're going to use those cards to move and make both kicks and punches and stabs and knockbacks and throws on your opponents to disable them or to knock them out. And the goal is that you knock all of them out before they knock you out. And like any roguelike deck builder, you're going to make your way through a round where you're going to do different parts where you can upgrade your cards, different places where you can heal, different random events where you're going to get a little story piece and you're going to make a choice, and then fights throughout the adventure. You're going to do this for Fights in Tight Spaces. There's a lot of unique stuff to it, but each section is like, I think there's like 5 gangs that you work your way through. You're going to fight your way through a biker gang. You're going to fight your way through a prison. You're going to fight your way through sort of like a samurai ninja gang. You're going to fight your way through like a high fashion mob. And then at the end, you're going to fight your way through sort of like your former secret agent mentor turned rogue and bad, and you're going to fight him on an airplane. And if you can make it through everything while upgrading your cards and gaining new abilities throughout the run, you'll finish one of the runs. This game has a lot of different difficulty settings, and those difficulty settings in this particular game do not just change how hard your opponents are. They substantially change the way you're going to draw cards and the ability that you have to continue making runs. This game has a very unique aspect to it in which certain difficulty settings allow you to completely reset a mission if you lose it, so you can keep playing, whereas most roguelikes, if you lose, it's just game over. And then that's really the bulk of the theme. I mean, did I miss anything in that that's super important? You're going to get a starter deck. You're going to unlock starter decks as you go. The more you play, the more you level up, the more cards you'll unlock to be able to access throughout the game. For one of your rounds, the more decks that you'll unlock for starter decks that you'll be able to use. I think and it's a one-time purchase, right? You're going to get it and you're going to have it. There is a DLC. We didn't buy the DLC, or at least I didn't.
I did. I got
Okay.
it bundled for Switch.
Yeah,
So I paid a little more to get the full experience.
There's the bundle is available as well on Steam. It's the Weapon of Choice bundle that allows you to master the art of gun fu, where you actually do get access to weapons.
Oh,
I'm not
now
there
I
yet.
Want that. Now I want that. Yeah. Now I want that. Gibby, let's go back to you. Tell us about your first impressions and your first couple of plays in Fights in Tight Spaces.
Yeah, so Fights in Tight Spaces for me, we were making like game comparisons that ourselves as we were getting in. We're like, oh, it reminds me of this, reminds me of this. If any of you have played, I'll make this reference for myself because nobody else mentioned this, and I don't want to steal anybody else's references when they kind of get into what they equated this game to, which I think my counterparts here made some great comparisons as well. From an art and theme perspective, it really reminded me of a game for anybody who has used an Oculus VR machine before. There is a game on there. If you have one and you haven't tried this game, go try it. It's super fun, called Super Hot. where you put on the Oculus and you are all around you. Basically, put yourself as Agent 11, who you play as in Fights in Tight Spaces. Put yourself as Agent 11, and you have a gun with you or certain various weapons, and it's a level, and everything is stopped in front of you. But as you move, that's when everything else moves around you, and it only moves as fast as you move. And you have to like shoot in slow motion or throw a weapon or dodge bullets and clear like a level. And if you don't, you restart it. Like it's no big deal.
That
But like
sounds
it's
sick.
called Super Hot, and it's super, super fun. And this reminded me so much of that. This game is so tactical, and it's such an evaluation. And just like in Super Hot, where everything is like slowed down and almost like time comes to a standstill, you feel like Quicksilver from X-Men, like all around you. Like you get to evaluate the scene and the level that you're in and be like really use your skill in this game. It's so much fun. And like you've got the ability in some of the controls to even like do a 90-degree around the room, or 180, and kind of shift your perspective and gain a little bit maybe of a different angle on, okay, if I move here instead of here, does that help me? And like it's actually really useful. But it is at its core that roguelike deck builder, just in a different atmosphere. That is the actual board itself and the game itself is so complex, but it's still a roguelike deck builder. I was very impressed in my first impressions of Fights in Tight Spaces. I think the most succinct way I can put it is I felt like they stripped out a lot of the noise from other games struggle with, and they just focused on making a great game. There's no voice lines. There's no like complex music or complex themes. It's almost like reminds me of like Plaid Ninjas from if you ever were on albinoblacksheep.com back in like the early 2000s. Might be dating myself a little bit.
No.
But and from an art style perspective, but it is like almost complex stick figures and like very like monochromatic, color coded to make sure you know who's good and who's bad. It's very clear, and it just allows you to focus on the gameplay and just have fun with it. And I love that about it, that they don't distract you from the game itself. They want you to appreciate the game for as it is, give you a cool theme, and then make sure that the theme matches the gameplay, and it make it intense without pressuring. And that is my kind of impressions of Fights in Tight Spaces so far. I'm loving it.
I haven't played
DBN?
that. I was gonna say I haven't played that, the comparison that you made, but I've seen. Was it Super Hot? Is that what it is?
Yeah, Super Hot.
Yeah, I've seen gameplay of it because it was super big when the Oculus first came out or whatever.
Yeah,
when it came out,
it's
Oculus.
really fun.
And you're right, like it does have a similar look to that, which is stylized, right? What DB had mentioned in the artwork before, right? Like the artwork isn't overly complex in this game. There's nothing to write home about, but it has a really specific style with like the grayscale background and like the grayscale of the room. And you're really just focused in on your characters and the other characters. It has this way of like, there's really no distraction from what you're doing. And I think that is quite cool and unique. There might be some deficiency things there occasionally, but I thought that was really, really cool. Yeah, DBN, I do want you to be able to go, though, and tell us about what your first impressions were playing some Fights in Tight Spaces.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put it right at the top. I think this is among the most impressed I've been in the first week of a review of a game so far. So I'm thinking about all the games we covered last year, and I'm thinking, I don't think I was this high on a game this early. Now, I'll also say I didn't binge this game.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a brain burner. And
it's long, too.
It's long. And so you play through it for a while and you're like, that was epic. I need to take a break. But I think that has made me in many ways, like I compare it to something like Inscription, where it wasn't that hard. And so I binged it and enjoyed the binge, but also then was like, okay, well, it's done now. I think I beat it really, really fast. And I played it over like the course of a Saturday and like the first bit of a Sunday and was like, okay, it's done. and there's not as much replayability to it. But obviously, this is designed more like traditional roguelikes, like Slay the Spire or Wild Frost, right? Where the replayability is sort of a big draw to it. Now, I have not yet finished my entire first full run, but I have played a good amount in that first run and really tried to take my time to learn the mechanics, to read the cards, to read the different new enemy mechanics. I think I'm going to start with my only criticism, which is I think they do kind of, I don't want to say throw you in the deep end. There is a tutorial for the controls and stuff, but I do think that it took me a while to wrap my head around momentum versus combo, where to find those things, what the different symbols on the enemy over the enemy's head would be. And I think the game would be maybe just a touch new player friendlier if they did like reminders of those things. Like if you held down the button, a little thing would pull up attack, health, whatever, and like a little heads up display thing. I think that would be a little bit easier. I'm good now, but I remember the first couple battles, I would be like, I thought that was their damage, and you're telling me that's not their damage, that's their health. Shoot, or like I remember mixing up combo meter versus momentum, and being like, crap, I just took a big hit because I mixed that up, right?
Or like trying to work out a kill, like you think you're going to kill something, like punching it or like kicking it into a wall, and you're like, I thought that was going to kill. I guess I didn't know how much damage making something hit a wall or hit an obstructive like barrier was going to do.
And one thing I'll tell anybody who's just trying out for the first time after listening to this, they say it one time and then never tell you again, but every time you move, you lose a combo.
Yeah, a point of combo.
Of combo. And so you really got to math that out. I think it's a great mechanic, but they tell you one time right at the beginning and you're already overwhelmed with all the other things they're telling you. And then you're in the middle of a battle and you're like, wait, where did my combo go? I needed to move up to this guy to do a finishing blow or whatever. And you're like, what the heck? And I had that moment of like, where did my combo go? And I rewound, because that is a mechanic I want to highlight, which is that you can rewind your turn a couple times per fight. And obviously, I'm sure as the difficulty scales up, they'll take those things away from you. But I think it's a really unique feature to have, especially just starting out.
Well, it's really important as you're trying to learn and like memorize all
math
the
out the
keywords
turns
and mechanics and math out the turns and like
right.
not land in the wrong spot, and take 15 points of damage in one, because the hits are brutal. They're not like, took me down 3
take
health.
A lot of
it's
hits.
Like, it's like it takes me down a third of my health, and I don't have that for the next 5 battles now. And you don't get a lot of money to be able to heal. Like you don't get there's a lot of times that you go to the medic place and you're like, I guess I'm just moving on because I don't have enough money to do anything here, Yeah,
those extra little challenges are really important for that.
Yeah, and being able to accomplish things like, a briefcase spawns on the map on turn 2. Okay, better go grab it quick so you can get some extra cash at the end of the match. And so they have little rewards, like if you finish a map fast enough, you'll get, if you finish a map without taking damage, you'll get some extra reward, extra cash that you can spend on your journey. Now I want to kind of talk about, for first impressions, the games it reminds me of. And the two things that came to mind, obviously from the roguelike deck builder perspective, it feels mostly like Slay the Spire, in that you have a nice blend of like block is kind of important in this game. And I say that because I think it's important to highlight that like Slay the Spire, you use block to tank hits, and then, because most of the enemy characters, unless you can stun them or whatever, in Slay the Spire, they are basically guaranteed to do that damage if they live your turn, right? So there's a lot of strategies, especially around like the warrior guy, that, block, stack the block up so you can survive to the next turn. What's interesting with this game is I feel like it's a more nuanced take on the block mechanic, right? Which is that you can build up an entire deck strategy around blocking and counterpunching and whatever, or you can just push people around or move around the map, because unlike
never get hit
because unlike a game like Slay the Spire or Wild Frost, where it's kind of like a JRPG, where everybody is there and they're doing their little movement dance, right, waiting for their turn to go. And there's no positional 3D space for them to go. And yeah, Gibby's got the Tekken stance, right? And so they will do their ability, and they're basically guaranteed to hit you, right? Unless you do something about it, unless you either kill them or block or stun or do something like that. But in this game, because it's a 3-dimensional game, it's a tactical grid-based combat fused with this, deck building system. You can choose to play cards that build up your block and tank some hits and counterpunch, or you can, play a bunch of movement cards to switch around and shift around the room. Or you could do a bunch of things like what my current run is doing, which is all about pushing people away and then throwing stun darts at them. It's awesome. And there's so much to dig into with that. And what that 3D spatial thing reminded me of is one of my favorite video games of all time, which is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, which is very similar. Grid-based combat, the way that you're facing at the start of your turn makes a difference. Like, that all exists in this game, right? And also Gloomhaven, where again, grid-based combat, but the part that made me think of Gloomhaven was not actually the cards. It was the fact that you can see the zones that the enemy are going to be able to threaten. And so much of Gloomhaven, and thus, because of the comparison, so much of Fights in Tight Spaces is looking at what zones are being threatened and pushing enemies away or repositioning yourself so those attacks either miss because you're no longer in that spot, or miss because you push them away and now they're hitting empty air, or even if you can position it correctly, forcing them to attack each other, which is the coolest part of the game.
That's what my current run is. It's a collateral damage run.
Do you have the taunt card?
I do. I have the taunt
that
card, and
so
I have
cool.
And I have a lot of like push cards. So it's like get behind somebody and push them in like 1 or 2 spaces, or like reposition them behind you. So I can like, oh, someone's got a gun on me. Take that guy, reposition him, and right in the gun's like range, and then just like watch it happen.
I think that aspect captures the classic sort of kung fu action movie so well, because in so many kung fu karate action movies, you like, how often is it that like Jackie Chan doesn't end up beating up anybody, right? He just avoids and redirects people, and all of his enemies punch each other, right?
Yes, like it feels very Jackie Chan sometimes.
It feels so much like that. Like those moments when you just threw someone positioned correctly and slid out of the way, and the boss got shot by 2 guns at the same time when they were both aiming at you. Like it's such a satisfying feeling, like when someone else gets knocked out, or when you kick someone out the door because you just positioned them correctly and you boosted this 60 health dude off a balcony and knocked him out in one hit. Like those moments are in this game in spades. And I think that is a really cool aspect of it.
I also, like, I'm almost done with my first impressions, I swear. I just have so many great, like, I'm so optimistic about this game. I really, really have been enjoying it. But I also love what you just highlighted, Mark, which is the environmental component is something so easily overlooked in games. A lot of times the environments you're fighting in tend to be nothing but window dressing. But here, it is both simple in that it is not overdone and like, there's a million things you have to keep track of. But instead, they're each of these, and again, in case we haven't said it, fights in tight spaces. These maps are small, right?
Yeah, very small to mention.
And that adds it makes it more interesting than less interesting. More scale would mean you can just run away from things and kite things. There's no kiting in this game. It at best, it's like, okay, I need to reposition so I only take 1 hit instead of 2. Or if you have the right combination of cards, okay, I'm going to get out of the line of fire of this shotgun. I'm going to take a hit from this dude with, brass knuckles, but I'm going to use a block card to make sure that I don't actually take the damage. Right. And so you're just, and like one of the biggest mistakes I made early was backing myself into a corner, and I got surrounded and I had to kick my way out of it, which was also really cool. but the environmental component that Mark highlighted, there will be things that, like, not on every map, but some maps will have balconies or like a door you can kick someone out of or get yourself kicked out of, if you're not careful.
You can ring yourself out.
And it's an instant knockout because you're out of the scene, right? It's just like in a John Wick movie. If he's fighting up on a balcony, he doesn't always shoot everybody or punch everybody. Sometimes he just kicks someone off the balcony and they go down to the ground, and then they're out of the scene, right? So like that feels like that. And then there'll be like things like walls or like
a car
or a tattoo table, right? And you'll have some cards that'll be like you can leap over a piece of furniture, and if you do, you get extra momentum and stuff. Or something like, you can a head smash card, which allows you to literally, if they're next to a wall or a piece of scenery, you can get an extra bonus. So the environment is used so well. It's very impressive. I know I'm sitting here ranting about all the cool stuff. I hope I left something for Mark to talk about, but it's so impressive with how much thought they put into making the game both complex, but like simple. It's like this weird, hard to define blend of like
clear. It's clear.
It's clear. It's not simple. It's clear. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about when I say like they stripped the noise out of everything. Like you are zoned in. Yes. You have a clear picture about what's going on, but what your decisions are intricate and strategic. Mm-hmm. Like it's just this weird kind of cool blend of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mark,
absolutely.
Where are you at?
Obviously, I really enjoyed this game in the demo. And my experience was different because last week I actually downloaded it on Steam and played on my Steam Deck. So I played mobile, but not on the Switch. And then I had 4 8-hour plus flights since we started playing this game. And I played mostly fights in tight spaces on those flights. That and watched really bad DC movies, which, by the way, Wonder Woman 84 is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. Like, hands down, one of the worst movies.
The reviews would agree with you.
Yeah. The new Batman, fantastic, by the way, with the vampire in it, is freaking awesome. It's probably the best thing that's been made since like the Batman.
I've heard that. That's the
Joker.
one with the Riddler as the villain, right?
Riddler, and he's excellent. It's really good.
Is that where Robert Pattinson is Batman?
Yeah, that's why he said the vampire.
There's
not actually a vampire.
Oh, the vampire. Okay.
Movie.
I haven't seen the movie. I was like, there could be a vampire villain. I don't know.
No. It's excellent. But anyway, so I played a ton of fights in tight spaces in those flights, and then also just some in the mornings on the Steam Deck, and it was awesome. Like, the game is fantastic. The full game is fantastic. The complexity is there. It is hard. And like, I'm playing on the easiest setting, like Suave or something. It gives you like 5 like restarts of a round. And then when you lose the round totally, you can just restart the whole round. Now, that's super unique. And you might be like, well, it makes it not a roguelike. But this game, and this is the one point that I will add, is insanely skill expressive, right? Like, there's a lot of other roguelike card games where you just get to a point where you hit a wall and it's like, oh, yeah, I could never beat this. I had not had a good enough set of random options to optimize and build my deck well enough to have ever beaten that room, that boss, that encounter. That is not the case in this game. Certainly, it is if you like. Uniquely enough, you can choose where you start. Once you unlock the 5 different categories, you can actually take a starter deck and go directly to the end of the game and try to beat the last 4 encounters with just a starter deck. You won't be able to do it, but you are able to try it. And if you start at zone 1 against the gang, like the biker gang, then you have to progress the whole way through it. So wherever you start, you don't, because I think the game is really long. If you wanted to shorten it and jump in a little bit later and just not have as powerful a deck by the end, you're actually able to do that. So they give you way more options in this than you have in your typical starter run roguelike card game. And I really quite enjoy that. I think that the extra challenges are really fun, hard, very difficult to accomplish. And I think the ability to reset and retry a level is really good as well. And I think that is because, like, in a lot of roguelike card games, it's like, okay, in Slay the Spire, I drew 3 blocks and 2 strikes. So my options are I can play 3 of these cards. I can strike twice, block once, block twice, strike once, block 3 times, and I have 2 different things that I can strike against. Those are my options. In this game, the order in which you play your cards, the direction that you choose to move, the enemy that you choose to attack, the place that you decide to throw them, the enemy that you choose to disable this round, all of that is intricate and deep, and from one try to the next is vastly different just on a singular round of one encounter. And so, like, I have found there was lots of times where I was like, I don't think I can win this. Like, I'm pretty sure it's impossible, but I'm going to try this encounter a few times. And like 3 tries in, I figured it out. And it doesn't change the cards that you draw, right? So if you draw 5 cards and you lose the round, when you start up again, you will draw the same 5 cards, the same grouping of cards each round. Your deck is stacked the exact same. So you actually learn something about your deck as you play, and you begin taking different avenues and different pathways to try to get victory. And what I found is, even when your deck is not ideal, even when it's not awesome, there's very frequently a path to victory in every encounter. It might take you a long time, it might be scrappy as heck, but there's very frequently a path forward. And then I think in the deck building process, the combination of taking cards, because there you build up combo by using momentum. So you use momentum to make attacks. Every attack that you make gives you a point of combo, right? And there's some cards that'll give you multiple points of combo with 1 momentum. And then you have cards that cost combo. But lots of the cards that cost combo, you can actually play for free, and it doesn't take away your combo points. So there's like a kick that knocks them to the left. Well, that takes 2 combo. But if you have 3 combo, it's not going to set you to 1. You're still going to be at 3 combo. So that's just a free card that you get to play. But you always want to be moving because you're always getting attacked. And so you're always moving and losing your freaking combo from movement. So you're trying to find ways to build up combo, have the right balance between normal cards in your deck and combo cards in your deck, so that you do get 1 or 2 free attacks every round using the combo that you have built up before you try to slip or slide or toss or stun your way out of being attacked. And that's the other thing. There's so many ways to avoid being attacked. Yes, you can just move out of your enemy's line of sight, and they won't be able to attack you that round. Sometimes you can use throws, and you literally throw them on the ground. There's stuns. You can throat punch someone or shoot them in the face with a stun dart. And
That's my favorite one.
yeah, and that's really fun too. And then there's times where it's like, there's a special card that's like, it does a certain amount of damage, and then it uses up all your combo. And for every point of combo, it does more damage. And so you get these big bombs that you can just like let off at the right time. I'm going to get rid of all the combo that I've worked hard to build up, and I'm going to completely throttle this one enemy in one hit. And I think that is like, it's super kung fu. It's super fun. You know, I think maybe one of my favorite cards in the game is this wall kick card. And if your back is to a wall, your back is to a wall, you can run up the wall, kick off of it, and punch somebody in front of you in the face for enormous amounts of damage. But positionally, you have to have someone who's directly in front of you, and you have to have a wall directly behind you to use it. It's not easy to set up, but when you set it up, it's super rewarding. And that is something that I love about this game, is like, there's so many of these really cool, rewarding moments. If I had anything negative to say about the game, I would say that sometimes if you're not careful with your camera angles, you can back yourself into a corner without knowing that you're doing it. Because depending on your camera angle, certain pieces of terrain in this little small room will disappear so that you can see your character. And if you don't spin your camera around the room, you might miss that countertop or that tattoo parlor chair that's actually trapping you and preventing you from getting to where you thought you were going to go this round. And I don't really have a whole lot of other complaints about it. Like, I would say this, I agree with DBN that it throws you in the deep end of the pool. Like, they show you a new mechanic, they give you one little blip about it, and then that's it.
And to be clear, I don't mind being thrown into the deep end from a perspective of difficulty. I just simply mean accessing the information in terms of like, wait, what exactly? There's a lot of numbers on the screen when you press, in my case, press X and pull up the show details panel, where like, okay, how much health does everyone have? You know, how much do they attack for? It would just be nice if there was a little bit of extra like heads up display, like, this is what this is, this is what this is, like just a little bit extra information of not like here's how to win, but instead of just like here's what the numbers stand for. And that really
And this symbol, yeah.
yeah, and that really was the only complaint. I mean, I'm a Dark Souls Bloodborne enjoyer, right? Like the whole that whole game series is predicated on the idea of you're thrown in the deep end, figure it out, right? And so I don't mind that from a difficulty perspective, but as soon as there's a ton of numbers flying around, my brain's like, okay, what is that again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, overall, I think from our point of view as a group, we have really enjoyed this game so far. This is definitely one that if you like single player card game, these roguelike deck builder experiences, this is a really good game to check out. This one's really unique amongst the landscape. I would say
Yeah.
more unique than any of the deck builder games that we've played so far, right?
I think more unique, perhaps. I will say it's also pricier, so like that's something to consider. Like
Yeah,
you
sure.
get what you pay for. You know, it's a great game, but you know, I would, you know, keep an eye out for it to go on sale. I can see someone not liking the art style. For me, I don't have a problem with it, but I can see someone getting in this game and being like, "I paid $30 and it's this simple."
Silhouettes. Yeah.
It's silhouettes.
Yeah,
Like,
I
can,
want something flashy or foiled or shiny or
yeah,
more
Enchanted.
complicated.
Yeah, so I'll just throw that out there, but like, you know, the game is super tight and really unique, I think is a great way to phrase it. And the other thing I wanted to just quickly throw out there, and you know, we will have plenty more to say about this next week, where we'll sort of get, you know, more into like how does it feel after you've played it for a while, like how does the replayability, and I'm sure we'll have plenty more topics to talk about as we continue through this month. But I do want to just say, like, hearing you guys describe your experiences, it's really cool to hear how unique, like, you basically, as you build a deck, you're not just building a deck of cool cards necessarily, you're building a fighting style.
Yeah. A way that I'm going
Like,
about winning the game.
And if you are like an anime enjoyer, right, and you've seen enough, you know, superhero anime or, you know, kung fu ninjas or whatever, you'll know that like what makes the characters cool is that they have their own unique fighting styles and gear and whatnot that really makes them stand out from each other. And that's one thing that I never really felt, even though you're building a deck in something like Slay the Spire or Wild Frost, I never really felt like, well, I'm just picking optimal things that go together. It doesn't feel like this is part of my character. It feels like I have my visual character and then I'm playing the cards out to try to win the game. And this feels like I'm looking at my little version of Agent 11, who she's got heels and like a side part haircut thing, and I'm like, yeah, her thing is kicking people. And I'm just like, I'm going to get all the cards that let me kick people and throw darts at them. And like her fighting style is like keep pushing people away, kick them away, push them away, keep everyone at a distance. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. And then Gibby talks about how, like, oh, he's moving people around, pushing them in the line of fire. Feels very much like how John Wick in some of the movies, he grabs someone and they get shot by bullets and tosses them into the next guy. And I'm like, you know, and then Mark's talking about doing Jackie Chan, run up the wall, flip backwards, punch him when you come down to the ground. Like, all of those are so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and so I'm like, I just love the idea that you can, every time you play through it, I imagine you can lean into a different fighting style, but it actually feels like, no, I am this version of Agent 11. This, you know, this generation of Bond, right? Like, and they're different from each other. So I think that it from a thematic perspective, as we were talking about art and theme earlier, from a thematic perspective, it just really, really works for me.
Yeah.
I want to make the best genist version of
the best
Agent
genist,
11.
yes, My Hero Academia. Anyways, yeah.
Well, listen, guys, we've been having fun with it for week 1. Hopefully, we'll be having fun with it in week 2 and 3. We'll be back next week with another little episode talking about Fights in Tight Spaces. We'll get a little bit more in depth into what we've been playing as we unlock more of the available decks and more of the mechanics. We'll see if it stays too long in the tooth or if we've really been enjoying it after this week. I suspect that we'll be glad that we spent spent the $25. I did look online. The lowest it's been is $17.50. So this is not the type of game, at least thus far in its history, that's gone down to a couple dollars, right? So like the difference between $25 and $17.50 is significant, but it's not as egregious as some other games that you can pick up for a couple of dollars on a good Steam sale. This one is going to cost you a couple of bucks, but in my opinion, at least thus far, the $25 that I spent on it was worth the time that I've already had in it. An excellent game that I hope to continue to play. So we're going to be playing that over the next couple of weeks. That's going to do it for this episode of the Starter Set. Appreciate you guys tuning in and listening. As always, check us out on Discord, check us out on YouTube, and check us out on Patreon. Let us know what you think about Fights in Tight Spaces over in the Discord server. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And check out our YouTube, as I am putting out a YouTube video of a playthrough, or at least a section of a playthrough of the first segment of a run in Fights in Tight Spaces, where I play a character and run through the biker gang stuff. So check that out as well. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you back next week. Hey. Welcome back to the post-show banter. We're glad you're here.
That was beautiful, Mark.
Was that good?
That was great. You had that like old school, like that grittiness, like you did for Runeterra. Do you remember that?
Well, first off, in Runeterra, all I was literally doing was mumbling into a microphone by the end of
it. just intelligible grumbling. Yeah.
We wanted to have a classic banter, not a question, not a particular subject we want to talk about. Just what have you guys been playing? And it could be card games or not card games, but what have you been enjoying recently in the world? And I know BBN, he's definitely got some stuff. He's got some stuff. So we're gonna let him talk about his most recent card gaming escapades.
Yes, thank you so much, Mark. Glad to be here. Just honored to be up on this stage because finally I didn't suck at a Pokemon tournament. Finally.
Amen. Amen.
So I talked about how this year, like, I wanted to take these card games a little bit more seriously and work towards playing competitively, and this is just one small step towards that, right? Because I've been going to my local league every week and competing in league challenges, which are like local tournaments, but you can get some prizes and stuff, and I think if you win, you do get like a small amount of championship points towards like the Pokemon World Championship Series, whatever. Obviously there's no world in which I could ever make that for this season, but I've been considering trying to collect some points and see what I can do for next season. And so with that in mind, I'm like, I'm going to ramp up my efforts. I'm going to stop building 10 decks at a time and playing a different thing every week and really focus on one or two decks. And I'm just happy because I finally picked one that seemed to work well for me and, practice it this week. Went to the league challenge and placed third out of about 16.
Oh, nice.
And went 3-1. So I won 3 games, lost 1, and that's the best I've ever played. Because I won the games that I won. Yes, there was some luck involved because it's Pokemon, but also sure. I'm really proud. In each game, I did at least 1 or 2 things that I think I wouldn't have done if I hadn't have been practicing with this deck, which is really a cool thing to be able to say. And then finally, the coolest part of this story is actually not even the fact that I did well, although I'm happy to brag about it here, but actually that my one loss was to somebody who's been in our Discord channel for a while, who just so happens, awesome, as luck would have it, lives in our area. And I'd run into him a few months ago at another league challenge. And of course, he came out to this one as well. Shout out to Dab Famlet. I don't even know if he listens to Starter Set because he came in through AOS Airwaves, that Gibby and I used to do for Pokemon Unite, and came into the community that way. So I don't even know if he'll hear this, but shout out to Dab Famlet for beating me and being my one loss, and ended up placing second. And so
let's go, Dab Famlet.
If I had to lose to someone, I'm glad I lost to somebody in the Camp Legend community. Mm-hmm. So
that's
a little bit of a cool story. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, that's
So
really awesome. That's
yeah, I thought it
that's
was
so
neat.
cool that you like low. It feels like the old school Hearthstone Tavern days, right? Where you actually
Yeah.
I got to be around, except you're playing a physical game, which is really dope. Can I ask this? What's the deck that you're playing? Like, like if
Yeah.
you're learning one solidly? Because I am interested. I've kept up a little bit on Pokemon.
Yeah, so right now I'm playing Arceus V Star with Reggie Gigas as my secondary attacker. It will change post rotation. But I'm sticking with Arceus, and then I'm going to pick up a second deck post rotation to like work on in case there's a meta where Arceus struggles. I can switch to a different deck.
Okay.
But Arceus is just so flexible in terms of like I can run any other V Pokemon that doesn't rotate with it, and it is just it's a streamlined gameplay. I think it's very newer player friendly, and that like it's super macro intensive, but not micro intensive. Like you have to know your matchups with Arceus because you don't have a lot of wiggle room in terms of like it's not like Gardevoir or Chien-Pao where you're drawing a million cards and you're thinning through your deck super fast. Like no, you have to like make every turn count. And you need to like rotate things around and position your Pokemon really effectively. The macro, I feel like I get, and I can run matchup like prep in my head. I literally was in the shower on the way to Pokemon, running through what I need to do to beat Lost Giratina, and then I played one, and I was really glad I put that mental effort in, right? But it is not quite as sequencing intensive, so nice deck for me at where I am in my journey as a Pokemon player.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Gibby, what have you been playing, man? What's been I mean, you have a kid now, so maybe nothing, but
I've
Playing Peekaboo.
Yeah,
He's been
I've
really
been-
jamming
oh.
games of Peekaboo.
yeah.
I've been playing Peekaboo. I've also been practicing my rock paper scissors for on who has to get up to go take care of Aubrey in the middle of the night.
How's your rock paper scissors MMR these days?
It's pretty good. Okay, here's my opener. I think I always start with Rock, and if Rock is successful in the first game, we play a good old game I know Ian is familiar with called Rock.
Rock.
It's for a best 2 out of 3. If Rock hits on the first try, you stick with Rock. You keep jamming Rock. They never expect you to go back to the well 3 times. But if Rock doesn't work, you got to pivot to something else, man. You got to go to game plan B. So that's the dichotomy that we start with. And I don't think Mackenzie can figure it out. I think she's lost.
She's just like why would he keep using
rock?
rock?
You just
rock.
You just rock. You put them in a spin cycle, and they just never see it coming. So yes, I've been practicing my rock paper scissors as well. But in card games perspective,
the rock paper scissors meta report.
Yes,
only found here on the starter set.
Look out for the new series, and it's going to be called Rock, and it's just going to be me talking about rock. It's Lorcana almost entirely. Been really excited for the new Inkland season. Inkland's set coming out here in the next weekend, 2 weeks actually. So it's going to be we're deep in card reveal season. I've been posting pretty much everything I can find in our Discord, so all of our other Lorcana players we can all discuss and talk about that. I've been getting a lot more involved in my local community as a kind of like trying to set some things up, and we're going to start tracking decks. There's a gentleman that plays in my deck, Sposy, or plays in my group. He joined our Discord, so he might be listening to this episode as well. His name's Cody, and he is going to be helping track the decks that people bring each week, so we can kind of get a feel for like kind of what our own local little meta looks like, and people can learn from what decks people are playing and what other styles are out there, and maybe try something new. So I think that's going to be really cool when you get those kind of wholesome people in your local group that put forth that kind of effort and really want to build that community. You've got several people in the Memphis area that are like that. So I've been really enjoying the Lorcana season. I competed in a couple tournaments. I've kind of found my version of a really good like fringe meta deck that I like playing, an Amethyst and Steel that I feel like I'm really, really practiced on right now. I took it to an online tournament, and I lost to Amethyst Ruby in the second round of an 8-player single elimination tournament. But that's overwhelmingly the best deck that everyone just can't stop playing, and my morals won't allow me to play it. So all of those games were close. I beat my first round playing against Amethyst Ruby, and then I lost to it in the second round. And both of the decks in the finals were both Amethyst Ruby as well. So 6 out of 8 players were playing it. That tells you anything. But
That's purple
yes,
red, right?
Purple
That's,
red for those who don't
yeah.
know gemstones.
That was good. That was good in the first set. I mean,
It's been good from the beginning.
It's been good since.
And I don't think it'll slow down. But
Draw.
that's a whole other topic. But yes, Lorcana has been hot and heavy. I'm signed up for a couple events when Inklings drops, and it's gonna be a really good time.
Not that people listening necessarily are that into it, but I would just want to say, I think if there's gonna be a set that unseats Ruby Amethyst, I think this has the best shot.
So far, yeah. There's definitely some built-in cards that the developers put in there to say, yeah, let's slow some of the pain points down.
Let's slow down control. There's a lot of cards in here that slow down control. Thank goodness, because your boy's a mid-range player.
I like mid-range as well.
So can't wait.
So that's what I've been jamming.
Nice. Well, to be honest, I haven't really been playing card games outside of Fights in Tight Spaces. But I have been playing other games. So I'm as a tabletop gamer, I've been played Star Wars Legion as soon as I got back from Africa, and freaking love that game and listening to podcasts about it. Found a new podcast on it that I really liked, and have been really building armies and working towards building out my clone army. I basically got a whole clone army for Christmas that I've been working on building, and I have Yoda and Chewbacca, and we've talked about this before on the show, but I'm working on that. And then
do they have a separatist army? Like,
yes, they do.
Battle droids and Dooku and Grievous?
Yeah, there's Dooku, Grievous, Ventress, and then like a bunch of like named tactical battle droids that you can use as commanders. And then they have like the Magma Guard or the Magna Guard and some other droid specialists and droid Dakars and
the droid Dakars.
A couple of
the droid Dakar.
They're really strong.
Bro, but if I was gonna play Star Wars Legion, dude, if I lived near you, I would absolutely get into Star Wars Legion. The only reason I haven't is because there's nobody around to play with. But Separatist would absolutely be my army. I love them. I love me some battle droids. Nice. They're so funny.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I lied. We got to close up the episode, but I did play some card games. I brought my 6 Gym Leader Challenge decks with me to Africa, and my brother and I played Gym Leader Challenge in Africa and in the airports. And so I'm bringing them with me this weekend too to a cabin, and my brother and I'm going to teach my nephew, my 10-year-old nephew, how to play. But I have a grass, a fire, a water, an electric, a fighting, and a psychic deck. And because I got like the Gardevoir, like non-EX version, like the one
Shining Arcana.
Yeah, the Shining Arcana one. I got one of those in a pack. So like that has kind of been like the key. I have like a key character Pokemon for each. So I have like the Pokemon Go, Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise for those decks. I have the Lucario that takes 2 fighting energy to use his ability, but he can take 20 damage to search your deck for a fighting energy and place on him. For the fighting deck, I have a pretty cool Raichu, but also an Ampharos that go in the electric deck. And so have really, honestly, we had a blast with it. And Kyle was like, would you bring these with you? Because I think I would really enjoy learning more about this. It was a lot of fun to play.
This is how we get Gibby to not hate Pokemon, is through Gym Leader Challenge.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because
it's
actually fun. Gym Leader Challenge is a really enjoyable, slow moving. You don't infinitely search. You only have one Pokemon each type in your deck. And it actually feels like you're playing Pokemon in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It feels more like the video games than the current standard.
I'm down to give it a
TCG
shot.
Does.
Absolutely.
So I think he'd like it.
Okay, next meetup.
Right.
But yeah, that's us. That's what we've been playing this week. Thanks for listening to the post-show banter. Congratulations to DBN on his third place tournament play. Awesome to see you just growing, getting better at the game as you've been playing. And yeah, guys, we're going to be back next week talking a little bit more Fights in Tight Spaces. Thanks for listening to the closing banter, and we'll see you next episode.